Oh, well, there's lots of support staff.
Okay, one more added to the list. Christine Bamberger. Yay! She jumped out. Oh, I'm sorry. I introduced myself already. Oh no, I introduced myself to the speakers tonight. My name is Linda Gerasi. I'm the president of the Conradina chapter. Okay, now I'm going to give you back to Jane.
Thank you. We could go to the next slide, John, when you get a chance, or next one. The real next one, this one, that's it. Okay. Just wanted to, before we get on to the native plant tour, I wanted to remind everyone about our agreement here with the First Church of the Nazarene. They give us this lovely free meeting space and facilities in exchange for us helping them take care of the native plants. And how many people here have seen the native plantings we've done so far? Okay, that's a few people. That means there's a few who have not. I know many of you participated. Thank you. So we planted all along the front of this building, the front of the next big building, and all the long driveway coming in. So when you go out, be sure and take a look at that. That was phase 1. We just got funded for phase 2 with Community Foundation for Brevard, and that's going to be for the food forest. That's going to be right between the two buildings here where the sign is. If you go out and look at that sign, that's going to be where the food forest area is. So stay tuned for that. We'll be working on that this winter. We'll be doing some planning and some, I still can't say that word, Pastor Joel, hugel mulching or something, whatever that is. Yeah, we're going to be doing that for the food forest. So we're very excited. Also very excited about the upcoming landscape tour, which is going to be November 9th on a Sunday, 9 to 4. Could you go to the next slide, please? This slide was in your newsletter. This slide is so cool. So for the first time, we're having artists at the sites. And all the sites this year, we're focusing on Palm Bay and South Melbourne. And there will be local artists that do local landscapes. Isn't this a gorgeous picture? This is the Port Malabar Scrub Sanctuary in watercolor, which I can't even fathom how to possibly do that. This is on the cover of the brochure as well. So we're trying to broaden the appeal a bit to wildlife and nature artists as well, so help us spread the word. And then, of course, I have an ask, because I have to ask something when I'm up here. How many people are Facebook people? Let's have a hand. Come on, get them high. Okay. How many people have kids in high school that need extra credit hours? Anybody? Nobody. Wow. Okay, so it's up to everyone who raised their hands previously. We really, really, really need some help on Facebook. When we went to the Sanford garden tour, they told us they had 800 attendees, and that was a low year for them, but it was primarily due to Facebook, getting the word out to all the groups, the subgroups, and all those other groups out there. So I'm going to have a clipboard out there, and I forgot to put it out earlier, but if you could help out at all, just even one little subset of Facebook, I was thinking, and I'm not a Facebook person, so I need help too, that we would create some kind of a communication web where I could feed people posts periodically so that they could get them on Facebook. And we could reach far more people than we've ever reached before. So I'm not asking a lot. Just your Facebook friends and family, which you're probably talking to a lot anyway, right? And all the native plant groups or landscaping groups that you're in. If you could help us out with that, we'd really, really appreciate it. The purpose of the tour is not to make money. The purpose of the tour is to educate people about native plants. Any money that we make gets poured into our native landscape projects, the current one being this church. So it'll be money we donate toward phase 2. So that's what you're helping us out with. I don't want to make it sound like we're in some money-making machine here, because we're not, okay? We're a bunch of volunteers. So that's everything I have to say. I think, Beth, are you next? Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Beth Blackford, and the chair of the Restless Natives subcommittee. Restless Natives are those of us who would like to be a little more active legislatively and promote the growth and use of native plants in our community spaces. So, 2 quick announcements. The first is all your hard work last year with the Speak Up Brevard program is coming to fruition on Tuesday, the 16th of September, with the Brevard County Commissioners meeting. They're going to vote on an amendment to improve the program with several items just to make it easier for you to get ideas across, and we hope that will pass. If you'll come and show your support, it's 9 o'clock up at Judge Fran Jameson building, and you'll see the crowd there. We'd love to see you there. The second item is this really cool idea, compliments of Doug Talamay and the Homegrown National Park. So this is the Mosquito Bucket Challenge. It's so easy to make, and it really does help control mosquitoes in your yard. I have a list here. It took me 4 weeks to get this list of the chemicals that Brevard County will be happy to spray on you otherwise. The problem is, it may not kill you, but it's gonna kill a few mosquitoes and a whole lot of other things too. So the Mosquito Bucket Challenge avoids a lot of that by killing the larvae of the mosquito. This is the idea. You take a bucket, get some water, leaves, grass, stuff in there, a little escape ladder for lizards or mice that might fall in, and then you put a piece of a mosquito dunk in it. That's a time-release larvicide. It'll last about a month. I've got some samples up here so you can see. Good thing I have a cheering section here to keep me straight and narrow. This is a mosquito dunk, 6 of them. They're available all over the place. Ace, Walmart, Amazon. They also come in sprinkles, which is really handy for controlling the water that gets into your bromeliads. If you just love your bromeliads, sprinkle these things in there and it'll help control the larvae. So that's it. I've got a couple more flyers on how to do it. If you've got a camera, come up and take a picture of the QR code. It's so much fun and it really works. Next.
Thank you. Okay, Jane, where are you? Oh, it's Richard. Ah. Huh. Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm really excited to introduce our speakers for tonight's program. We've had a lot of fun with these guys. They're also our new sponsor for the yard tour in November. That's what they deserve, a big hand for that. So the speakers tonight, it's Florida Custom Aquatic Services, LLC. They've been around here for, 13 years now, I think? If you have been on any of the yard tours in the last few years, they did 2 of them that were on the tour that perhaps you've seen. One was at Tanya Rainwater's house over on the shore, and the other was at Samia's house last year. And we loved it, so we decided to do the same thing. So I'm going to introduce the 2 owners, and it's Adam Klingenberger and Brad Fontaine from Florida Custom Aquatics. And please, come on down. Tell us what we're going to do.
got a couple of props.
Check, check. Check, check. What did I do? Hello? Hello? Can you just use the microphone?
We can use the microphone. We like to keep it simple.
Yeah, we'll start with the microphone. We'll see if this will catch up for us. Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing tonight? My name is Adam, and I'm with Florida Custom Aquatic Services.
And I'm Brad, also with Florida Custom Aquatic Services. And we came here, we were invited to come talk to you guys today about a number of different things, so I won't get too far ahead of myself, but Florida Custom Aquatic Services, the name is kind of all-encompassing, and there's quite a few things that we do. And so we'll kind of go over some of those things, and we'll have time for questions at the end, and we hope you enjoy it.
Absolutely. Nope, still not working. I got a signal, but yeah, we're really excited to be here. We're passionate about Florida's ecosystems, native plants, and aquatic ecosystems, as you guys will find out throughout this presentation today. So let's go ahead and get started. What do you think? All right. Let's see. So I'll go back, read our title slide, right? A unique approach to Florida's aquatic resources. Like Brad said, the name of our company is fairly general because we encompass a lot of different things. We do three main things, and we'll get into the details of those in this presentation, but that's why our company is more of a general title, because we don't want to limit ourselves to what we can do with Florida's aquatic ecosystems. Maybe? All right, I'll let Brad introduce himself.
All right, I hope you went too far.
Sorry.
All right, so my name is Brad Fontaine, founder of Florida Custom Aquatic Services. I started in 2012. It was kind of a side gig. I was working full-time at the time for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission as a freshwater fisheries research biologist. And there's actually two of my former colleagues here in the room tonight. I had no idea they were going to be here, so shout out to John and to Sherry. Did my schooling at Auburn University in fisheries and a master's at Arkansas Pine Bluff, also in fisheries and aquaculture. And yeah, we've been in business 13 years now.
Like I said, my name is Adam Klingenberg. I got a bachelor's in marine sciences and a minor in geology from Florida Gulf Coast University. I've been working with Brad for 8 years. We actually met while I was working at Marine Resources Council in Palm Bay. I went to a Melbourne Chamber of Commerce event and saw him there, and he was there representing FWC and Florida Custom Aquatics. So I naturally had to go up and talk to him, and we started working together on weekends. And at that time, I transitioned from Marine Resources Council to the Brevard Zoo, and I worked at the Brevard Zoo for 5 years in their conservation department, primarily working on oyster restoration projects. So we worked on the weekends and built water features and did different installations, and worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then we'd go back to our full-time jobs on Monday. And as of 2.5 years ago, we've both been doing it full-time, so that is exciting. And we've got an awesome team too, which really makes the wheels turn. All right, what we do. So this is where we're gonna kind of touch on those three main legs of our business. The first one, the one you guys may have heard of, is our natural water features. It's a little bit out of order, but natural water features, our decorative garden features, and that encompasses a lot of different things, but primarily it's an enclosed recirculating system that not only brings beauty, but being natural water features, they don't use chlorine or other sterilizers in these systems. It's all biologically based, and we'll get more into those details further on in the presentation. The second thing that we do really lends to Brad's background. So pulling from his schooling and experience with FWC, we do pond and lake management work too. So we call it earth bottom pond work, or natural ponds, so retention ponds. And we'll go in and evaluate ponds. We'll do biological assessments and define your goals. We'll help renovate ponds and beautify them. But the third thing that we also do is natural shoreline construction. So along the Indian River Lagoon, kind of tying into my background working at the zoo, we do shoreline construction on the intercoastal waterway as well, using terracing, coquina rockwork, but also incorporating plantings and mangroves into those as well. So hybridized living shorelines. And those are kind of the three main facets of our business. You want to touch on the... We have recreational swimming ponds up there too, which also ties into the natural water features that we do. Those are aligned systems, but that's just on a huge scale. So we'll talk about kind of the different types of water features, from little waterfalls and garden features all the way up to recreational swimming ponds, which is the biggest water feature that you can get.
So we have a couple of affiliations. Like I said, we do multiple things, and so with our water features and our water feature work, we are associated with Aquascape. They're a leading manufacturer of water feature products in the world, and we are certified Aquascape contractors. They actually have multiple different levels, and we're the master level of certified Aquascape contractors. The other affiliations we have are with AirMax, and they provide what we believe is the best quality fountains, decorative fountains, and more importantly, bottom diffused aeration systems. So when you see a pond, you'll see those little bubbles coming up. That's called bottom diffused aeration, and it's one of the most healthy things you can do for your pond, your natural pond. And so we install those systems. And then the third one is SOX. We're certified service providers for SOX, and it's an erosion type control system. And so there's multiple different types of erosion control systems out there, but the SOX has proven to be very beneficial and long lasting. And so we've tied ourselves to them as well. So here's just a brief look at the agenda. We're going to talk about the natural water features, and then tying into the natural water features is the rainwater harvesting, which we're really excited about, and we've done some projects that we're going to showcase. We're going to talk about our lake management work a little bit, and restoring wetlands, and then we'll have time for questions. So here's the beginning. You know, we all want water. We all need water. It's essential to all life. And so you see some of these pictures here. These are, a lot of times when people say here water features or koi pond or waterfall, they think of these things. And they're okay. They have their place too. But most of these are chlorinated or don't run very well, or they don't look very good. So they also require quite a bit of maintenance. So we wanted to come in with a different system and provide much more beauty and habitat. So.
So that's where natural water features really come into play. You saw some of the bird baths, the tiered fountains, conventional water features that you're used to seeing in your gardens, and they absolutely do add water. But like we said, they require a lot of maintenance, and you have to chlorinate them to keep the algae down. You're constantly removing debris to keep them clean. So the benefit of a natural water feature, there's a few different benefits, but one of the big benefits is the reduced maintenance due to no chlorine, no sterilization. You let biology take over, and that will help clarify the water and balance the ecosystem. So we like to say we're working with Mother Nature. We're not trying to battle against her. We're not trying to constantly sterilize to remove algae. We include aquatic plants in these systems, and it helps pull up the excess nutrients that are deposited into the systems via leaf debris or fish poop. So those natural ways that water can be detoxified. And the main principle that we use for these recirculating systems is the biological activity that we promote. So we build the systems to be resilient in the fact that we want beneficial bacteria to grow on the rocks, the surfaces of these systems, because that detoxifies the water. It removes the nutrients and helps complete the nitrogen cycle, which keeps the water clear and allows these systems to continually operate and be low maintenance for long periods of time. And that's really the basis and the heart of these systems, is that biological filtration that we use within them. So a couple other benefits we put on there too. These attract wildlife. Not only are they aesthetically beautiful to look at, but they attract wildlife. It creates a freshwater drinking source for birds, bees, squirrels, any wildlife. Everything needs to drink water, so it creates a watering source similar to the other water features, right? But it does it in a much more aesthetically beautiful way, sustainable way. They also, so how we build our features, we focus on something called biomimicry. We want to create a system that really, truly looks natural and looks like it's a stream or a spring. It's not something that, it's something you would see in nature. It's not something that looks unnatural. So we focus on biomimicry. We want to make something that really looks natural. The other really cool things is these systems are flexible. So the aquascape things are modular. They can be scaled up, scaled down. You can use them to build pondless waterfalls. You can use them to build ponds, which we'll talk to you guys a little bit more about. And you can even use them for capturing rainwater and using rainwater, which is really neat. So one of those things we touched on, these features are great for promoting biology. So the basis of these natural ecosystems. We want to have beneficial bacteria, and beneficial bacteria needs oxygen. So a really important part of these systems operating and working properly is keeping the water oxygenated and oxygen rich. So we have waterfalls, we have aeration systems like Brad was talking about that help keep oxygen in the water, because the bacteria that we want, as it's breaking down those nutrients in the fish waste, it's also consuming oxygen. So as it does that, we want to reintroduce the oxygen back into the water so that it has the ability to keep operating, to keep breaking down those nutrients. So we promote the biology, we don't fight the biology. They're chemical free, maintenance free. You don't have to add chlorine. We do use dosages of beneficial bacteria in these systems. We do use dosages of algicides, safe algicides sometimes, depending on the system. So, but we're not using harsh chemicals like chlorine, bromine, ozone, things that will damage your skin, your eyes, your hair. So if you're interacting with these water features, they're safe for people to interact with, but they're safe for wildlife to interact with as well. So you don't have to worry about pets, animals getting in there, drinking, bathing. That is the beauty of these chemical-free natural systems. And we've got a little diagram of the nitrogen cycle up there. Not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of it. We already talked about it a little bit, but that is what keeps these systems operating and crystal clear and looking beautiful.
So we want to plant native aquatics, whether it's within our natural existing retention ponds or natural earth bottom ponds or in our water features, our decorative water features. These native plants are super beneficial to every single thing that we do. They will uptake nutrients. They'll help keep that algae from forming. Those free nutrients that are available will then go towards plant production versus algae production. We like to put them in our earth bottom ponds to help protect against shoreline erosion. It will help protect like I said, shoreline erosion, and it will help create habitat for fish and wildlife. Ducks, butterflies, everything uses them, and so it's really great. Here's a list of kind of the main ones that we like to use. There's spike rush, and I know there's many species of that. We use the golden canna, the blue flag iris, pickerel rush, duck potato, bulrush, one of my favorites, bacopa, and alligator flag. It is, yeah. We kind of rebranded it to pickerel rush because pickerel weed sounds a little bit off to people. And so, yeah, it's attracting wildlife. You talk about the principles.
Yeah, so attracting wildlife is a huge part of these systems as well. Principle number 5 in the University of Florida, IFAS, Principles of Florida Native Landscaping, says that you want to attract wildlife, and one of the ways to do that is adding water to your garden. So this weaves in with those Florida native, with the IFAS principles, not only with principle number 5, that's the main one, but it also lends to other principles like helping to protect shorelines, because we can use these to reduce stormwater runoff. And there's some other ones too I can't think of right now. Yeah, stormwater runoff, reducing stormwater runoff. So it really ties in well with those Florida native landscaping principles. IFAS. We have some videos on here where just little examples of wildlife that have been attracted to some of the water features. So this is trail cam footage. We might need you to click the play button up there if you don't mind. So you can check out some of the cool wildlife that have been attracted to these water features. And this is just a snapshot over a couple days this trail camera is set up. So we really want to expand on this program for trying to capture more wildlife using these water features. So that was a Carolina wren there. Oh, there's a little sound too. And this is in a urban area too, so let's see. Let's hit pause on that one. I'm gonna see if we can jump over. Let's hit play again. There's a blue jay. We don't have to watch these two, but I love watching these. Yeah, they're very funny.
So you guys built this?
We did, yep. This is actually in my yard. Yeah. Downtown O'Galley. Yeah, right in downtown. So blue jay there. Let's see. Squirrel hopping around. All right, last one. Yeah, some raccoon butt for everybody to see. See, is he gonna go? Last one. We don't have to watch it. And those cute little feet standing on the rocks out there, grabbing a drink, and then hitting the road. So that was over a week period, and we collected a ton of footage of the Carolina wrens and the blue jays, and a few more of the squirrels, a couple of raccoons. So a lot of our customers have talked about different animals utilizing these features, bobcats, but as far as birds go, grackles, collared doves, Eurasian doves, what else? Cardinals, yep. So they absolutely attract the wildlife. And this is a small feature. It's only about 4 feet long, so it's considered a small pondless waterfall. It's a little bit tough to see, but the pondless waterfall falls into an underground reservoir. All right, so these features, a really cool aspect of these features is the basis of them is similar and modular, like I said, but we can upgrade the systems so they have larger reservoirs. The heart of the system they all have an underground reservoir. So the system needs an underground reservoir to operate. It needs a minimum operating size. Typically, it's about 3 of these blocks that are buried under the ground, and it's about 100 gallons or so of water storage. We can put many more blocks in because they're modular. They go next to each other. We can stack them deeper and wider so they can be used to capture excess rainwater. So your gutter is directed into this underground reservoir, and the water from the reservoir can be used for irrigating your lawn. It can be used for irrigating garden beds, flower beds. So once the systems are full and the rainwater fills the system, they overflow into dry creek beds and bioswales. So really cool way to not only have a beautiful water feature, aesthetically attracting wildlife, and you're also reducing stormwater runoff at the same time, but you have access to fresh water, you have access to rainwater that you can tap into and use to water houseplants, water your plants. And rainwater is the best watering source because the pH is perfect and it's naturally deionized when it evaporates and then rains back down. So it's the best water that you can use for irrigating your plants. So why do we want to capture rainwater? You guys, I'm sure, are familiar with rain barrels and the principles of capturing rainwater and using rainwater. So there's a lot of reasons why we want to capture rainwater, actually, but it reduces runoff, flooding, and erosion, one of the biggest ones. So these are the environmental reasons why we want to capture rainwater. And then conserves and replenishes groundwater. It allows you to recharge the aquifer. Second main reasons why we want to are the practical reasons. You know, we can create a supplemental water supply. So you have water that you can use for irrigation. You have water that you can use for flushing your toilets if you want to. You have water you can use for washing your car. This is high quality water, and depending on how you treat it and take care of it, you can use it for a lot of different things, maybe even drinking. It's an emergency resource. During a hurricane, you have a large reservoir of water that you can use for flushing your toilets. You have access to that, so it's also a safety net. And cost savings, you're not paying for municipal water, and you're lowering your carbon footprint because you're using water that doesn't have to be pumped there from a municipal system where it's highly energy intensive to do that. So you're using water that not naturally falls on your property and utilizing those resources that are given to you. You know, you want to utilize what lands on your property. You don't just want to take it and ship it out. So use it to the best of its ability. And then there's community benefits too. It promotes self-sufficiency. It educates people about the water cycle so they are more familiar with where their water is coming from and how they can use it and not waste it. And then it supports agriculture too, which is so important. We want to support sustainable agriculture, and we want to support sustainable agriculture practices. So a little bit more about the rainwater harvesting. You can see a more traditional rain barrel on the side, on the left-hand side there, and then a rainwater harvesting system on the right-hand side. So first thing that jumps out is aesthetically they look a little bit different. One of them is, you know, a natural water feature. The other is the barrel, and they both have their own strengths and weaknesses. So the benefit of a barrel is that you're getting water directly off of the roof, and it's a little bit cleaner water. Once it goes into a water feature, it's good for irrigating your lawn and garden and plants, but it may not be water that you want to take and put in your toilets or flush your car, or wash your car. So you get a higher quality water. But the other really cool thing is these systems are designed to be set up in sequence too. So you can have a rain barrel as kind of your first way to capture. So you have a rain barrel or even a larger cistern, 200 gallon, 300 gallon above ground. So you can capture in that. And then when that overflows, it is set up to overflow into an underground reservoir within your water feature. So then you're really capturing a bulk of water. You have your storage water, maybe your higher quality water that you can use, and then you have your high capacity water in your water feature. Once that water feature is full, that reservoir is full, it overflows into designed bioswales or dry creek beds, so it has a chance to percolate. We want to create areas where they're swaling systems, so the water flows in, fills up, then overflows into another one, fills up, overflows into another series of excavated areas so that you're giving that water a chance to percolate into the ground to the best of its ability. And you're really taking the water on your property and utilizing it the best that you can, and not only for yourself, but for the environment. So our water, the other advantage is the water is biologically active coming out of these water features. It has bacteria, beneficial bacteria. You can get in and swim in these water features, and there's a doctor in Canada who actually equates this to like a beneficial bacteria, like a yogurt, but on your skin. So it's actually beneficial to introduce some of those microbes to your skin potentially. And because a common question that we get is could this be potentially dangerous? This is a freshwater source that isn't treated. There is always a potential for it to be dangerous, but what sets these systems apart is they're highly oxygenated, and that oxygen is the key to creating a system that it promotes the bacterias that you want to have in there, the oxygen-loving bacterias, and discourages the anoxic, or the bacterias that you want to discourage, and the potentially dangerous bacteria. So you're creating a system that is really promoting those beneficial bacteria and discouraging those harmful bacteria through the oxygen. And another big difference is cost, because I know that's something that people are curious about as well. These systems are more expensive than a conventional rain barrel, but you get a lot more bang for your buck.
Storage too. Go back real quick. I can't quite read it, but that 1 inch of rainfall on a 2,000 square foot roof equals about 1,250 gallons of water. And so you can't hardly capture very much of that in a 50-gallon rain barrel, just a small fraction of it. So if we were able to build a 2,000, 3,000 really big underground basin, we can capture a lot more of that rainwater.
And like we talked about already, dry creek beds. So that's an important part of these systems. When you're directing rain from your gutters, there's a potential for 1,200 gallons to come down the series of plumbing in an hour. So that's a lot of water coming down. Once your underground reservoir fills, you want to be able to safely convey that and percolate it if you can, but convey that into a conventional stormwater system so that it's not going to create problems in your yard. So that is an important consideration when you're talking about a rainwater harvesting system, is what are you going to do with the water after it's full? Using mulch, gravel, and plants with these bioswales is extremely helpful. Mulch, traditionally or historically, Florida was covered in natural mulch, oak forests, thick layers of mulch, right, of this natural mulch. And that does an incredible job at absorbing and slowing down water. So using mulch to your advantage to capture rainwater, you can't utilize that water, but you're passively capturing it and keeping it from running off. Gravel as well. So with these dry creek beds, we create deep gravel beds within them so that the water is slowed down, and it helps to capture more water but also slows it. And then plants, you guys know, got to have plants in there. Plants slow down the water, plants uptake nutrients. So just critical parts of these systems to get them to come full circle and work properly. All right, project showcase. We're going to show off a couple projects that we've done. So to familiarize you guys with the systems a little bit, how they operate, and show off some cool pondless waterfalls and ponds. So the first one that we're going to show off is a 200-gallon rainwater harvesting pondless waterfall system. It has a dry creek bed that flows out of it as well and hooks up to the gutters, and it uses Florida fieldstone. The pictures are a little bit tough to see, but on the left-hand side here, you can see that matrix of aquablock. So that's these things right here. That's what creates our underground reservoir. So when we're planning one of these systems, we figure out how much water we need just to support the system. And in order for the system to work properly, when we turn our pumps on, the water flows up to the waterfall and then comes back down. So we need enough water in this underground reservoir so that when it turns on and runs down, the water will make it back down to the bottom before the pump runs out of water. So that's our first consideration when we're sizing these underground reservoirs. And we always make them larger than they need to be, so that way when we're never going to run into that situation where it's running out of water just to operate. The second consideration is where it is in the property and how we're going to orient it for viewing. So we want to always design these things so they are viewable from your outdoor living spaces, your indoor living spaces, where you're going to be recreating in your yard. You're going to be able to enjoy it. So when we do these consultations, we like coming out to visit your property and talking about how you spend time outside and how you want to enjoy these water features. So that's that underground reservoir. And that other black square on the side right here is a pump vault. So that is actually a little bit lower than all of these blocks, and that's where the pump lives. So it creates a sump or a low point, so the water in these systems runs back in and then goes towards the pump. But when these reservoirs do have to be cleaned out, you can put a pump in there, and then all the debris that's gathered in there is pumped out via that pump vault, but it's also where you access the recirculating pump. So it's easy to maintain. That's what makes these systems, the beauty of these systems is you can see all these blocks, and then we use rubber liner on top of them, but then the water just falls through the gravel into this underground reservoir. So there's no filter pads, there's no big bead filters that you need to clean in order to keep these operating properly. The maintenance that you have to do is when leaves fall within the stream, they're going to gather right at the end where the water falls down into the underground reservoir. You take them and you take that out of the system. Even if you don't take those leaves out of the system, it's not going to affect how it operates. It'll just slowly decompose and create more organic material in that underground reservoir, and then you have to clean it out more often. But if you don't clean that leaf material out, it'll gather at the end of the stream, and then the stream will overflow it and still find a way back into that reservoir. So it lends to these systems being extremely low maintenance. This is our tie-in to the gutter system of the home. In this instance, we tie in with 4-inch PVC pipe. So behind us, when we took this picture, is a downspout that was tied into and then brought over and then into that reservoir. So when it rains, the rain fills up the gutter system and then overflows right into this series of aqua blocks. When that overflows, it's pulled into a dry creek bed, which you'll see in the video here in a second, where that excess water is overflowed into a drain system. But you can see after it's established here with native plants, the water is crystal clear. So there's no treatments in this water. Might look like it, but that's the biological system. Yes?
How much area does that take up in square feet?
So this system with this has a 6-block footprint here, is about 8 by 8, the footprint of the blocks. And then what we do when we excavate for these blocks, because we want those to be just below grade, we take the dirt that we excavate and we flip it up. You can see there's a pile of dirt behind right here. And that's what we use to create elevation for our waterfall berm. So the total footprint of this is about 8 feet wide here and 14 or so feet long. Absolutely. So there's that established system with all the native plants in there and looking beautiful and crystal clear. We do have a video of this one too that we'd like to show you. Yeah, so this, you can't see the waterfall yet, but this is the dry creek bed area here. So just below where this video starts, there is a drain that takes the water from the side yard into the stormwater drainage system. So we went from our reservoir into that dry creek bed and then into that system. And within that dry creek bed, it's a little bit tough to see, but there's pooling areas where the water has a chance to build up and percolate before it makes it into that drainage system. Should be some sound too. No sound, but yeah, that's the.
Sounds really nice.
Yeah, it does. The sound is one of our favorite things, and well, a lot of people are looking. Yeah, what a lot of people are looking for too. They may want to drown out road noise, or just create a peaceful setting in their backyard. All right, second one we're going to show off is similar to the first one. We'll go a little bit quicker. This one is 150-gallon rainwater harvesting pondless waterfall. So I say pondless waterfall. I should tell you guys a little bit more about what a pondless waterfall is, because it's kind of a weird term. But the systems that we build we can build ponds or pondless waterfalls, and they both are similar in their design and construction, but in functionality a little bit different. So these fall into that underground reservoir and then are recirculated back up, whereas a pond system has a skimmer on the edge to pull surface debris in. So the beauty of these pondless waterfalls is the low maintenance aspect aspect to them compared to a pond system, which takes a little bit more maintenance. And these are what we say the best for attracting wildlife into your yard is these pondless waterfall systems. So you can see this is the excavation before we put the aqua blocks in there. And it's a little counterintuitive because you'd think we're digging a square hole and we're putting these square blocks in there. So it's going to look like I have a big square block in my yard, but by the time we disguise it, then it turns into a natural system once it's been planted and vegetated. So it really, water features get better with age, like a fine wine. The ecosystem gets established, the plants gets established, and they really do look better over time.
So is that a liner?
It is, yes.
It's permeable liner or
It is not permeable. So thank you. I meant to mention that. So we use a double layer system for creating water features. Up at the top here, you can see it's a little bit of a different color. That is a geotextile fabric. So it's a non-woven, thick geotextile fabric, and that is a protective layer. And on top of that, we put a 45 millimeter EPDM rubber liner. So it's a very thick, flexible, we should have brought a piece of the liner so you can see it tonight. It's a very thick and flexible, impervious membrane. So that is what creates the waterproofing for these systems. Because they are all recirculating, we don't want water to escape these systems. We want them to be able to recirculate, and the only loss of water that we incur in these systems is due to evaporation.
And how long do these liners last before
They're guaranteed for 20 years, but how we use them, so these actually came from the roofing industry originally, and they're made by Firestone. They're guaranteed by Firestone for 20 years, but the way that we use them, everything is buried and it's hidden from the sun, from the UV. So then the UV is the main thing that will degrade the liner, but it's all covered with rock and gravel. So these liners, we've had other contractors that have been putting in projects for over 30 years with these liners. So it's all about how you install the system and then protecting it from the UV to make sure they last a long time. That's a great question. All right, the third project that we're going to show off, and the final one, is a larger reservoir. So this one has a 700-gallon underground reservoir. So it has 20 of these blocks underground. And it also has a little bit of a larger stream, and within that stream is a small dipping pond, we call it, with some steps where you can actually get down into the pond. So not only is this a way to capture rainwater, create habitat, but yes, sir.
Gallons per minute of the pumps?
This one is 7,000 gallons per hour. So gallons per minute, what would that be, like 6? No. Yeah. This one's 7,000 gallons an hour. The last one I showed, this one's 2,000, and this one's 3,000. So the pumps that we use are all submersible pumps. Traditionally, you see a lot of water features that use like a pool-style pump or an external pump, we call it in the trade. And the external pumps, the disadvantage is that they are outside of the water, so it takes a lot of energy to actually pull the water up and into the pump, whereas a submersible pump is sitting in the water, so it negates the need to physically suck the water up into the pump, and the submersible pumps tend to be much more energy efficient because of that. So the pumps that we use are all Aquascape pumps, and they have strived to make the pumps as energy efficient as they possibly can. Yes? The pumps use, depending on the size of the pump, between 2 to 4 amps. Some of them are even less for the really small size pumps. So you can expect to pay an additional $5 typically to $15 for a water feature, 15 on the larger side, 5 on the lower side a month. Yep. So like I said, this system has a really unique aspect to it in that it's designed to be recreated with what we call a recreational water feature. And recreational water features are new, relatively new. Some people may have heard the term natural swimming pools. Aquascape has coined the term recreational water feature because it's designed to be recreated around and with. So you're creating a natural bathing pool that does not require chlorine, does not require sterilization. So you can get into it and you can cool off on a hot summer day, and you're not going to get out and your eyes aren't going to burn and your skin isn't going to be irritated. So it really is a totally different experience swimming in a natural water feature. We like to say we're trying to replicate a Florida spring when we build these features. So it's just a really different experience, and everyone needs to try it. This system is unique because it incorporates aspects of a pond and a pondless waterfall. So it has a large biological filter on it. It has that dipping stream, and it has the 700-gallon underground reservoir. So
do you run the pump continuously 24/7, or do you switch it off? Or?
We run the pump continuously. The reason we do that is because the biological filter requires a constant supply of oxygen. So we have to continually, the biological filters we use are all upflow biological filters. So for smaller features, they're 2 by 2, and they go up to 3 by 3. But if we're building a really large feature, we construct what's called a constructed wetland. So next to our pond, we're excavating a hole. It is customizable. It's a modular system. So depending on how big the pond we're building is, we'll build a bigger constructed wetland. So we'll dig a large excavation. In the bottom of that excavation, we'll have a pipe that comes in that has slots in it. Then we'll lay these blocks on top of that in a large flat pattern, and then put layers of rock and gravel. So the water is pumped up through layers of rock and gravel, then overflows back into the pond, and that mimics a natural wetland and actually creates that tremendous amount of surface area for the bacteria to grow. And that's where these systems really vary from a traditional swimming pool. Traditional swimming pool has a relatively small filtration system compared to this. This filtration system is about 1/3 to 1/2 the size of the pond itself. So it's a massive filtration system. That's what's required to keep these things crystal clear and clean and operating properly. Here's our last video.
One more video.
Doesn't want to go?
Oh.
Maybe.
There we go.
Is there any? Wish there was some sound. So if you haven't seen these systems before, I highly recommend going to see them in person, because the videos and the pictures just don't do them justice, unfortunately. You really have to see it and experience it in person. If you're interested in doing that, you can reach out to us, and then we can put you guys in contact with people that have them. And we do have some public displays too that you guys can go visit anytime. Yes. That's very true. So if you guys are going to go on the native landscape tour this year, the plant giveaway site is at the Blackford residence, and we did do a feature at their house that you can go check out. So highly recommend going to look at it during the plant tour this year. That's a great opportunity to go see it. And Brad mentioned we do have a couple displays too. So in downtown Melbourne at the old Chamber of Commerce building, it's now the Revive Salon and Spa. We have an example of a pondless waterfall there that you can go see anytime too, right by the train tracks. So I wanted to touch on these large-scale projects a little bit too. Like we said, we're certified aquascape contractors. So Aquascape has really pioneered these unique stormwater management systems and have done some super cool projects. This is just one of them that I'm going to talk about today. But just to give you an idea of what these projects can scale to. The projects that we're working on, you know, they feel like big projects to us, but comparatively, they've done some really, really cool projects. So this one is at the Phipps Conservatory in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Aquascape went in and helped them design a system that captures the rainwater from all of the buildings on the property along with the uplands of the pond. And that flows into a 65,000 gallon pond that has multiple different natural filtration systems, including wetland filtrations, native planting, bog filtration systems. And then it also has a 22,000 gallon underground, 23,000 gallon underground reservoir that it recirculates from too. So this is, if you haven't been here before, a really cool property. They've met 4 of the highest building certification levels at this property, including LEED and 3 other ones that I can't remember right now, but they have done some really, really cool work at this property to make it a sustainable property. And on the final note for the water feature segment of this presentation, we wanted to touch on the fact that we were actually nominated and won an award through Aquascape this year, and it means a lot to us. So every year they give out a series of awards to pond contractors all over the world. There's thousands of contractors that are part of this group, and they give out one Conservationist of the Year every year, and this year we were awarded Conservationist of the Year. So. All right, so that is it for the first half of the presentation with the natural water features. We're going to try and zip through because I got much more long-winded than I should have been, so sorry about that.
Everyone still awake? No, it's just joking. No, it's we are super passionate about this stuff, so we can talk about it for hours. So we end up a lot of times, and even when we're on consultations trying to sell a project, we see this space and we get this huge big idea, and we're like, okay, we have to tone it down because there's typically a budget to work within. So, you know, it's what we love to do. So we like to talk about it too. Want to talk a little bit about lake management in Florida. The way it's done currently for retention ponds, especially, is what I would consider to be pretty poor. I mean, most of these are, I think we have a slide about it, but they're, you know, pretty steep slopes. They're grass up to the edge, and they're treated with a herbicide every single month. And it just doesn't lend itself to any nutrient removal or it's just wildlife habitat, stormwater runoff. Erosion is a huge problem in these systems, and maybe that's going to be what flips the script, because these people are spending tons and tons of money on these socks and other erosion control systems, where if we could just keep some native plants along the shoreline, we'd be in a much better spot. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I can't quite read that one. Whoops. Sorry, I'm getting used to this. Yeah, we just covered that. Yeah, historically, this is kind of a map that shows how things used to be and how things have changed over the last 75 years, and there's a lot of predicted change in land usage over the next 25 to 50 years. So we really, as a community, as a state, really need to be thinking about how we're going to manage our water resources and see how we can improve from what's going on now. You know, years ago, there's a lot of natural flow coming out of the Kissimmee River into Okeechobee, down in the Everglades. Farming and agriculture, that kind of changed things. They've ditched it, they drained it, and a lot of population growth said, let's get all this water out of here. So they've got it moving pretty quickly through all these systems. And as things have changed and people realize that's maybe not the best idea, we are actually starting to do some large-scale restoration projects as a state and on the federal level too. And I might even talk about some of those. I might not. I don't know how much time we have. But yeah, disturbed areas are really like prone to growing these invasive plants, and that's the state spends millions of dollars treating these invasive plants, and it happens on a large scale in our natural systems, and it happens on a micro scale in all these HOA neighborhood retention ponds. It's very common. Is there a trick? All right. All right, so we have, like I said, there's these large-scale restoration projects. They happen on super large levels. The Kissimmee River one comes to mind. There's the Everglades restoration projects, but we also have some, in our own backyard. We've got the Vieira wetlands, and they're here for holding storm water to treat it before sending it downriver, trying to get those nutrients out before it goes into our lagoon systems and our fragile ecosystems that we have along the coast. There's some stormwater parks. I don't know if you guys have been to Wheeler down in Mico. That's a really pretty one. I think this picture is from there. Vieira wetlands, Orlando wetlands. So there's a ton of them, and they're really good. But we want to try to do something on a smaller scale too, and make any impact that we can. I'm not as good at this. Upper St. Johns River Restoration Project. I'm not going to talk too much about this. I worked on this a lot when I was with FWC, but this is one I'm very, very familiar with, and I want to at least briefly touch on it because it is kind of interesting. So this is from the Water Management District. This upper basin was diked and drained, and 62% of the floodplain marsh was lost. All these canals led straight to the Indian River Lagoon, pretty much dumped straight in there. And so they began this project in 1977, and it's among the largest wetland restoration projects in the world. And it consists of, they call them different things. There's water management areas, marsh conservation areas, but essentially they're big giant retention ponds to hold water and store water and keep it there so we can keep it clean. And the district motto is like water supply, flood protection, water quality. So we are, somewhere up in here, that's Lake Washington, and all these little colored parts of the map are parts of these marsh conservation areas, water management areas. So it's a massive, massive scale. I want to say I have the info, it's like over 60,000 or 600,000 acres. Oh, is it up here? Yeah, 166,000 acres, thank you. But one in particular that I did a lot of work on and I thought is pretty interesting, and it's relatively new, is the Fellsmere Water Management Area. And this was sold by Fellsmere Farms, Fellsmere Joint Ventures, to the state, and they decided to use it as one of their water management area projects and add to their upper basin projects to collect more stormwater. This one in particular is 10,000 acres, and it created an interesting opportunity for us as freshwater fisheries researchers to study this and see the impact that it had on multiple things. Mostly, the state was really concerned with the sport fishery was one of the highest concerns, but there's also a lot of other aspects that went into it. So I'll briefly touch on some of this stuff. Did a lot of native plantings. We did cypress trees. What else did we plant? Mainly cypress trees. And then, so this is actually a pretty good representation of how it looked before. This was just flat agricultural farmland. There was sod production. There was cattle grazing. There's actually watercress down there. And what we did was we came in and made a ton of different contouring in the bottom. So we added these fake river channels, ditches, humps, gravel beds, all kinds of contours that will help promote different diversity in aquatic plant species and then in turn wildlife. So it's going to attract different types of fish and wildlife and plants, and this different habitat for the nursery habitat for these sport fish especially. There's another view of it. And this is, again, on a super large scale. This is only about 2,000 acres of the 10,000, but it was a massive undertaking.
So are you demonstrating different ideas by having all those different patterns?
We wanted to, but we really, in the sake of science, we really wanted to try to keep it simple and not have as many variables. So we were looking at the response of the fish community, of the fishing, like how quality the fishing is, the water quality, the aquatic and the terrestrial plant habitat. We were looking at the response to flooding of all of that in these enhanced versus these non-enhanced areas. We did some mapping, so we did bottom bathymetry mapping to get sonar to see the bottom structure, the hardness, and the aquatic plants. So this map here is actually the property right next door, but it was a heat map of all the submersed aquatic vegetation, which is really interesting. As you guys probably know, submersed aquatic vegetation is really beneficial for fish and wildlife and water quality. And so we wanted to see what it was doing and how it was responding to the flooding. And then the Water Management District put out this map, which is really cool. It's a map of all of the different types of plants and plant communities. You can see how they're broken down. You're not going to be able to read it, but they have a couple different categories. It's not by species, it's by category. And so we want to do this every 5 years to see how this is reacting and how it's responding.
I'm curious, do they have a lot of information from the past or aerial photographs or anything, what it was?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember seeing it was just pasture land or farmland. Before that, historical data, I don't know how much they had of that. As far as what it looked like before the farming took over, but it's been like that for quite a long time. Mostly grass marsh. I mean, it's part of the floodplain, so there was going to be a lot of, wetland marshes. It is. It's right next to the stick marsh. Actually, I'll go back one slide because the area that I'm talking about, this Fellsmere Water Management area, is actually right here. And the area that's highlighted actually is the stick marsh. So the only thing separating these two is a levee. It's back there.
If you go down to Fellsmere and you eat at Marsh Landing Restaurant, the tables have old newspapers, in the reservoir below, and they're from the 20s and earlier, and they were marketing all that as for sugar cane growing and other crops.
Yeah.
So it's developed.
As early as the 20s. Yeah, I believe it. And Marsh Landing is a great shout out. I love that place. Water quality, we had a couple different water quality meter types out there measuring the response to flooding. Again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds in this, but it was very interesting. And then the freshwater fishery is what we really were trying to monitor, or what I was trying to monitor as a research biologist. And so we stocked this lake with over 1 million largemouth bass fingerlings. And we were sampling in the enhanced versus the non-enhanced areas. We did fin clips to determine if the fish that we were catching in our regular sampling were actually from our hatchery or wild fish. So there's a lot of really cool things that we could do. And this lake was undergoing a new reservoir syndrome is what they call it. So it's got a boom in productivity. It's just flooded. All these nutrients are coming into the water, and that feeds the bottom of the food chain. So we saw some really phenomenal growth of bait fish and plankton production, and what that turned into was large sport fish. So this lake is actually, and it still is now, one of the premier fishing destinations in all the world. We have people from all over the world coming to Fellsmere to fish down here. It's pretty interesting. This was too busy to read. This is actually the bottom hardness, the bottom contour, and the submersed aquatic vegetation map right when the lake was flooded. This map now is probably almost all red because it's got a ton of submersed aquatic vegetation. Unfortunately, it's the non-native hydrilla, but it still is providing a lot of habitat and clean water and excellent fishing opportunity. All right, right, so getting back into lake management on the scale of what we're doing and what we're talking about, channelize and maintain, that's kind of been the MO for a long time. Herbicide treatments, pretty much the standard nowadays. Mechanical dredging and ditching. Like these disturbances, they really do lend themselves to creating habitat for invasives to spread. That disturbed area is prime real estate for invasives to show up. And then we talked about it, mowed grass up to the edge of the pond with no vegetation. I don't know why people think it's a good look, but it seems to be what the majority of HOA boards strive for. We have to change that. I'm sorry? Just the golf grass up to the edge, no aquatic vegetation in the pond. Treat the lake every month with herbicide. So stormwater ponds, they're retention, detention areas. They're essentially designed to take the stormwater runoff from land that's been developed, capture it, treat it, hold it, and then when it rains, send it down the line. As they fill with sediment or organic material, they lose capacity over the years. So technically, they're all destined to fail because everything does capture into these lakes, and the storm drains everything you put on the street. The oils, the gases, the trash, the dog poop, all that stuff ends up in our stormwater ponds. But there's typically low dissolved oxygen, the wrong biology is present, there's really no habitat, there's not a great place for fish and wildlife to live and thrive without any plants, and there's a super excess of nutrients because there's nothing in there to help reduce those nutrients. So the water is essentially moving too fast. They get it in there and they hold it as long as it can, and then it fills up and overflows. And so they're engineered to capture a specific amount. Every single property, every single development is engineered because it has X amount of impervious surfaces, and it needs to capture X amount of water based on their calculations. And they're all permitted through the county or St. John's Water Management District. These days, it's mostly all the Water Management District. And they have to be maintained. So the HOA does have a duty to do. They have to maintain these for conveyance. And unfortunately, I think they take that a little too far, which means they're treating everything, and that's not the best. So inflow and outflow structures need to be maintained. That makes sense because the plants can block those, and then we can get them backing up and flooding, and that is a bad thing during a hurricane or a storm. So what we want to do is try to figure out a way to manage it differently, and we've been working with the county, multiple HOAs, trying to develop these protocols and alternative methods to increasing the function of these stormwater ponds. So what we're doing differently is we're analyzing, like Adam said, we do these biological assessments, we do sediment samples, water quality samples, we look at the muck accumulation, but all that stuff ultimately costs money, and these HOAs typically don't want to spend money on these assessments. So most of the time we're doing some visual assessments, like is there erosion present, yes or no? What about the number of inflows and outflows? The existing vegetation community is something we can easily see visually. If there's algae presence and what type it is, all this stuff we can look at pretty quick and make a determination on what we can do. And there's opportunities for other things too. So these ponds, what they're designed for is to hold water and store water, but there's opportunities for them to be recreated in. I mean, a lot of people don't want that, but it's something that, like I said, it can provide a ton of habitat for wildlife. So just to even watch wildlife, it's opportunity for fishing. Some of them allow kayaking and stuff like that. Most of them don't. But there is opportunities to increase the usage and the interaction with these ponds. So we want to try to shift the paradigm, go from a barren shoreline to an actual fully functioning ecosystem, and we do that by creating habitat for fish and wildlife and pollinators. They'll all come when we plant these things. And one of the biggest threats and kickback that we get is that's going to just attract rats and snakes. And that's not necessarily untrue, but it's, in my opinion, it's attracting them away from your house. And so it's giving them a place to actually live and be. And there's also other species that are going to help keep those things in check. And so it's just, that happens to be one of the biggest kickbacks that we get from communities. And so we want this mindset shift, and we want to promote nature and show that it's beautiful. And, bird watching is very popular in Florida, and it's something that we could probably use to get these communities to help buy in. Because, when there is habitat, look what shows up. We've got nesting sandhill cranes, we've got the blue-winged teal, and there's millions, maybe not millions, thousands of more species that utilize this habitat.
So what demonstrations do you have that you can send us to or point out?
So yeah, the question was if there's any demonstrations. We've been working with Suntree HOA, and there's a Jordan Blass Learning Lake that's there on the corner of Jordan Blass and St. Andrews. Thank you. And so they've got some signage up. We've done some native aquatic plantings, talking about doing some other things, but you can actually see how that pond is much more different than some of the natural or the common ones. And so there's eelgrass in the pond, so there's a native submersed aquatic vegetation, which is great. We planted, I think, 7 or 8 different species of emergent plants, and there's also like upland plants that are native that they've done as well. So that's a really great place to go look. They have a sign with some QR codes that will probably give you some more information about it. So that's trying to use that as an example and then show people that can be a beautiful way to manage these ponds and provide better habitat, better everything. There's not going to be shoreline erosion like some of the other ponds have because the shoreline is protected.
Now, are you doing aeration also at some of those?
We'd like to be. There's no power at that source. Aeration is almost always the number one thing we like to recommend. Oxygen is the key to all life, and aeration is more about circulation than it is actually adding the oxygen. I always describe it to people as like a scuba bubble. It's got these tiny little bubbles that come out, and it doesn't get much bigger, but it gets bigger as it moves up through the water column, and that pulls the water in, lifts it up, and spreads it out, which does far more than a fountain would do because it's lifting up the entire water column and circulating it. And that's really a good way to promote that beneficial bacteria colony and to provide oxygen to the lake. I think we've already talked about all this. Yep, dissolved oxygen, again, super important. I'll just breeze through this. Bacterial, fungi, microorganisms, aquatic insects, plants can all detoxify water, but they need a supply of oxygen-rich water. And that's where that aeration really comes in. We can use aeration, we can use fountains, we can use waterfalls, and we can use plants. Aeration is by far the best way to do that. You can use solar aeration nowadays. It's starting to come out, but it typically doesn't run 24/7, and it truly needs to really get that benefit. Ponds that have high dissolved oxygen will have a thriving bacterial colony and will help consume that muck, break it down, and make that hard sandy bottom that we like to see. And I'm gonna skip that. So the biggest thing that we face now with our paradigm, our methods, our plan, is the nuisance vegetation removal. It's plagues us. It's aquatic invasive plants are constantly growing here in Florida. And that's why you see all these companies spraying the shoreline every month. And sometimes they need to. It's just, there's too much growth. So there's different options. This is an example of a physical manual removal of aquatic vegetation. So this is a pond with cattails, and we did this manually, cleared it all out, and now it looks like this. which is great, but it's really labor intensive, which also means really expensive.
Cattails are bad.
Cattails are kind of a gray area. They are native here, but they're invasive still. They spread very fast. They thrive in certain nitrogen-rich environments, and I wouldn't say they're bad, but most people want to get rid of them, and we typically do, just because of their ability to overtake an entire pond. Luckily, we got to this one before it got too bad, but I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't see any square inch of water in that pond within another couple of years. So again, there's the mechanical removal, which is an option, but it's expensive. Another option is the biological control, and that's commonly going to be used with these grass carp. There's a couple different methods, but these are a type of fish that we stock in order to help control certain submersed aquatic vegetation that's bad, that we don't want. Hydrilla is one. Some of the macroalgae is another one that they'll eat. But these are kind of highly regulated. They require a permit from FWC. They have to be triploid, so typically their eggs are pressure treated when they're in the egg stage, and they develop an extra set of chromosomes, so they're sterile, and they all have to be certified. And right now, there's not a lot of people making them, so they come from Arkansas. Quite a bit of them are coming from Arkansas and other states, so those are also getting more expensive to get, and they don't actually eat every type of aquatic vegetation. And then the final method that we have in our toolbox is the chemical control, which is sometimes necessary, but when we do that, we like to be a lot more selective. We walk the banks or take boats, and we use a backpack, and we target specifically the non-native or the invasive plants. And instead of a lot of the other companies, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but a lot of them you'll see are just kind of driving the edge with an ATV or a boat and just broadcasting their herbicide treatment all the way across the shoreline. And so there's a way that we can do it that's a little bit safer, a little bit more selective, that helps and keeps things a little bit more balanced. And then there's erosion. So like I said, when you have these banks that look like this, there's really nothing protecting that shoreline from wind and wave energy. And eventually, with a lot of wind and wave energy, you're going to get that stuff breaking down. There's also even invasive catfish that excavate the banks, that make their nests inside the banks, and that makes it even worse. So you can see the shoreline here versus here, where this is a nice stand of native aquatics that's sitting there blocking that wind and that wave energy, and that just keeping it from falling apart essentially. And this is plenty of habitat on that lower picture for wildlife, and it's removing nutrients. It's doing all the things that we want it to do. So we really want to try to get communities to buy in and get their lakes looking a little bit more like this and less like this. And I do think this is going to be our best bet to pull that off, because they're spending significant money to fix these erosion issues.
So if that erosion was allowed to continue, what would it do? So it basically, it's trying to heal.
Right. Yeah, if the erosion is allowed to continue, it's going to keep kind of sloughing the banks off and widening, narrowing the shoreline, and also taking away property. So people are losing property. Yeah, people are losing, and it threatens the structures. A lot of times people will have a pool structure on a concrete pad, and then as that erosion comes, it starts chipping away at that concrete. And so that's when the HOAs also get in trouble, because they get legal action taken against them because they're not maintaining their pond, and so it's costing the homeowner money to have to fix the issues. And so
yeah, and these systems, like you said, they're designed to fail. So they have the steepest slope, that they're allowed to have legally via permitting. So those steep slopes, like you said, when they're eroding, they're naturally trying to regain a shallow grade. And they don't want shallow grades because they're losing upland property. But the systems are trying to regulate, but due to the permitting and the steepness of it, they're quite literally designed to fail over time with no plants and a steep shoreline. So
yeah, erosion's going to be our best. I mean, it's tough, and it's hard on the communities, but I think it's going to be our best friend in trying to get this type of habitat approved for future use. And we like it too because we're certified SOX providers, and this is an example of the SOX system. So we come in with a severely eroded bank, we install the SOX system, and then we can sod over top of it. What we'd like to do is add aquatic plants in front of it too, but this is a system that works really well and it lasts a long time. So it's something that we offer, but we prefer not to do that. We prefer to put plants in and keep it natural. Cattails are, again, they're tough because they do exactly what we want them to do, but they get a little bit too thick, too big, too wide, and yeah, exactly. So yeah, the native aquatic plantings is an absolute fraction of the cost of repairing a destroyed shoreline, and so prevention is always going to be the best cost. Again, we've talked about all this, why it's important, but. And this is the littoral zone and the riparian zones. These are areas that are within the pond that provide different levels and different types, which really allows for a really cool biodiversity. And we can get, in the deeper water, we have the submerged aquatic plants. The coontail is a good one. Like I said, eelgrass is one of our favorites. Then you can get native white water lilies that floating in that next region up. And then the emergent plants where they have the spike rush. We plant the iris, the pickerel weed, the duck potato, and the spike rush. Cattail's on here too, but we don't plant it. Other ways to manage your pond that are a little bit safer and more natural are the bacteria treatments. You can actually add bacteria. There's millions of different strains of bacteria that you can add, and that will help. But I think it's not very successful without the use of aeration. I think those two in combination work really well. If you're having a ton of algae, you could use dye. Will help shade out the algae. The algae needs nutrients and sunlight, so if you can block out some of that sunlight, it's not going to grow as well. The same goes for submerged aquatic plants. Floating fountains, they're mostly just for looks, honestly, but they do provide some aeration, and they do look nice. Floating wetlands is kind of a relatively new technology. I don't know if you guys have seen the bee mats, but they're essentially these little floating foam mats that they plant with little plugs of plants. They let them grow, uptake the nutrients, but it's labor intensive because they have to come in there, harvest everything, and then replant it. But it is a great way to actually pull the nutrients out of the lake instead of just recycling them, which is nice.
Southwest corner of Wickham Park.
Wickham Park has some. I've seen some in Titusville. I see them here and there, and they're a great product, but it is. MRC. Yep, they do have to be maintained, just like pretty much everything else. Fisheries management, I always have to throw that in there. It's kind of my passion, but we do like to offer fish management plans, fishing management plans. We actually offer a weird service that probably no one's ever heard of, is electrofishing. It's something that we can do and do a biological assessment of your fish population on your lakes. Typically, we don't do it in these HOA ponds, but some of the larger farm properties we've worked on, which is pretty cool. Shoreline buffer zones is another great thing to use. You're planting, native plants that are slowing down that runoff of fertilizer, slowing down that water running in, and that just helps keep less from getting into the pond, less of the bad stuff. Mowing protocols is another great thing to talk about. So a lot of times you see the mowers, they're running around, they're blowing all their grass clippings into right into the pond. That's pretty much just like a shot of nitrogen in the arm, which it's hard to get people to change that practice, but it's something that should at least be discussed with your mowers if you guys have.
It's your land and your
Exactly, and the best thing is like leaving a buffer, leaving 6, 8, 10 feet of buffer zone that does not get mowed, even if it's still weeds. It's stopping a lot of that stuff from going into the pond, and it's helping reduce grass clippings when you do mow. And another great way to manage ponds is reducing the stormwater runoff, which is what we talked about before. There's rain barrels, there's rainwater harvesting systems, there's bioswales. All of the aquascape ecosystem ponds can be designed to harvest rainwater, and we like to promote that. And low impact development. There's starting to be more and more of that, and we support it. Managing expectations, I'm going to speed up a little bit. Nothing really happens overnight in pond management. I will say that. You put the plants in, and it might be a year or two before it really starts protecting your shore. They're not going to be swimming holes or trophy fish productions. They're actually there to collect storm water and runoff of the road. So they're not designed to be, a great system to live in and thrive in, but they can be much, much better. Dense vegetation and algae are kind of unsightly to a lot of people. That's one of our biggest hurdles, but they do provide that ecological function, and so it's important to at least mention that and consider it. All right, that's it. Questions? Thank you for sitting through that. Yes. We got one in the back first. Do we have time for questions? I'm sorry, I didn't even ask. Okay. On canals? Yes. Yeah, we actually just did a project on a canal up in Melbourne near Lake Washington, and they're doing well.
Yeah, it depends on the slope and what type of plants you want to get established. So some canals are a lot deeper than others. If we're planting aquatic vegetation, we want to have a shallow shelf, ideally, something where we can establish a little bit of a zone to get those plants in. So if they're really deep, like a intercoastal lagoon canal where it drops off 6 or so feet, then it's difficult to plant in.
You had a question?
I just wanted to know what kind of award, I mean, you won the award conservation.
Sure.
Was it for one specific site, or was it for just your overall design since you had?
It's a good question. It's more for just overall what we preach. We're always on our social media. Adam does a great job of explaining the systems that we put in, and we are always trying to promote the rainwater harvesting. You guys have been recipients of these, some of you guys, so we practice what we preach and we believe in it, and that comes across in our social media, and so that's probably one of the main reasons why Aquascape selected us for that. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm so excited.
Oh boy.
But I'm on the Palm Bay Sustainability Advisory Board, and also I'm very active in the city of Palm Bay. Have you currently have any contacts there, or made any, anything at all? Have they called you, or you called them?
We actually sat down with, I don't remember who it was. This was like 4 years ago, but it was somebody in the city, and it was, we were talking about trying to get some sort of pilot program going for constructed wetlands within the stormwater retention ponds.
Okay. So, and I worked with you and reignite that conversation. 4 years later, we got a whole new everybody.
We absolutely can. We'd love to. I've got our cards. Both of our cards are out there. There's a bunch of literature. 100%. 100%.
We'll come up with a plan.
Yes.
Can you tell us what the question was that preceded the answer, because we can't hear the question?
Okay, will do. I don't know if I can remember them all. She was asking about Palm Bay, working with the city, if that's something that we've ever done before, and we said yes. She was asking why we got nominated or selected for the Conservationist of the Year from Aquascape. That was her question. Yes.
So tell us about your crew, how big you are.
Yeah. So the question is, tell us about the crew, how big we are. We have an incredible team, and I think that's what's helping us be so successful. We have myself and Adam are the co-owners, and we have 2 guys that are full-time in the field. A lot of times we're in the field all the time. We kind of go back and forth from office work to field work, and we also have a full-time office manager. So there's 5 of us total. Yeah.
How long have you been in business now?
This is going to be our 14th year in business. Yeah.
2.5 years full time. So
Yeah.
it was over 10 years where we were doing it part time.
Yeah, but I mean, you gotta build up somewhere, right?
Exactly. I know I saw you had a question earlier. I don't know if I don't want to put you on the spot. If you don't have it anymore, that's okay. Oh, okay. Good, good. Yes. Oh, we got one more question. Sorry.
The question is about the recreational ponds in the backyard.
Yes.
In a jacuzzi, in order to minimize the, or maximize the water quality, minimize contamination, you have to go through a lot of measures to wash off and not bring stuff on your body into the pool. Is that less of a problem in the natural biology of the recreational backyard pond?
I would say yes. This is a very new territory for us as a country, these natural recreational swimming ponds. And so Aquascape is leading the charge again, as they typically do, with the research and development of the practices. We have to kind of be careful when we say swimming pond. We're not swimming pool contractors, and so we do use that terminology, recreation pond. We still build everything to the same standards, but I don't remember the commission, but there's some bathing load commission of some sort that's involved, and they're starting to get more and more into what we're trying to do. And so in the next couple of years, I think there's going to be more probably regulations that come out based off of this. But the oversized wetland filter is definitely designed to handle the stuff that we produce in our bodies. I don't know if you want to expound on that.
Yeah, sunscreens, I think it's always a good idea to take a bath before you jump in there. It's if you are not a bath, a shower, just a quick rinse off to try. If you have sunscreens or coming from the beach, something like that, it's the system can most likely handle it, but it's a good idea to try and rinse anything off that might be on you that you don't want to introduce into your natural ecosystem.
Well, we're also not going into 104-degree water
Yeah.
like a hot tub is. I think we're around 73 or 74 degrees, which is pretty close to groundwater temperature.
It is.
Yeah, the water temperature is a lot lower, so that will help with the bacterial growth and that type of thing. But as far as chemicals go, I think it's better to try and keep them out of the system if you can.
Part of the question is whether you would set back the biology on what you brought in with your main pond.
But potentially some of these.
You have to recover from those pools.
Yeah, absolutely. We with these systems, something to think about too is we're hooking it up to a gutter of a house. So you might need to get your roof cleaned. You might need to, do maintenance on your home, and you want to think about these things that are going to be coming down the downspout. If it's a chlorinated wash that they're using, that could absolutely affect the biological balance in the system. It may be able to handle that. It may not. There's a lot of variables that would go into what the shock level is going to be. But yeah, absolutely, I would say you want to try and reduce the things of the system that might kill or damage the bacteria in the system.
And because this is an ecosystem, it's somewhat dynamic too. It's going to go through changes. We can try to control it as best we can, but it is dynamic. It's going to go through changes, and it's going to have algae blooms, and it's going to reduce those algae blooms. So it's something that is still an ecosystem. It's natural.
Yeah, seasons have large effects on it. Rainfall,
Excuse me.
definitely, like you said, it changes.
Just to wrap it up, I want to make sure you guys got your free plans, because you should get a free plant on your way out. And will you be around for further questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can definitely stick around for further questions. We brought some literature, a couple of brochures. We both have business cards. We actually brought some plans too. I don't know what we're going to do with them. We were going to show them to you guys, but probably do something with that.
That was a great presentation.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for sticking around, you guys. Really appreciate it. Listening to us, and I know we threw a